Good day. Hello, I'm Dr. Joanne Lisosky, and today we will delve more closely into a case that is on the minds of civil rights activists around Azerbaijan as well as the world, and that's Oktay Gulaliyev. I'm here with his son, Ali, from Prague. Hello, Ali.
Hello. Hello.
And I'm so sorry what your family has been through these last 11 months. And I'm going to give the audience a little bit of a background now. Your father, Oktay, was a rights activist, and he was arrested many times. Initially in 2012, he was more or less, at that time, he was a human rights activist working with people in disasters, but he was arrested and beaten in prison. He gained the attention of the civil rights and human rights activist organizations around the world. Amnesty International called him a prisoner of conscience, which means that he was arrested for no real reason except that he was politically motivated. Other human rights organizations found the charges in 2012 spurious, and they condemned those charges. He was then released in 2012, but banned from leaving the country. Now, more recently, in October 29th, 2019, that's 11 months ago, he was crossing the street and hit by a car. This is profound, and you can talk more about this, but this is profound because he had recently reported on Facebook that he was being followed by two cars. Two people in a car. He had been warned to stop his rights activism activities or something would happen. He was taken to the hospital, but all procedures were delayed. When he was in the hospital with serious injuries, this was 11 months ago. What does the family say about this delay initially?
Thank you for your question and for your considering my father's case and your concern about his condition. Yes, as you mentioned, my father was hit down on 29th in 2019 while he was crossing the pedestrian zone. And you might saw the video how he was hit, which was recorded by another car, which also seems that was not planned by the planners of this so-called accident. So currently my father's condition is he's in coma condition, like which also could be called like a semi-coma. His condition is currently stable, but he hasn't gained his consciousness yet. Although he's opening up his eyes, but he's like starving in one direction, and he's just randomly moving his fingers and sometimes his hand.
And he is in Istanbul right now, right?
Yes.
In the hospital in Istanbul, not in Baku.
Yes, he's in Istanbul in American hospital there. Yes, and as you mentioned, he's there. He was taken by the Heydar Aliyev Foundation, which belongs to the current government's family, who's ruling this foundation, and it was taken directly after his operation. After 2 days, he was operated, and the doctors came. His situation was really critical. Like the doctors came and they just have an option that my father has a 20% chance that he will live, he will survive. But luckily he has survived. The reason is because his operation was delayed, like over delayed for 13 hours, despite he was having the internal brain bleeding. Yeah, he's literally not done anything by the doctors in Baku in city hospital, and they just literally not done anything. Just they didn't examine his brain if there is an internal bleeding or there is something like when he like so my father. It has to be mentioned that my father has transferred to the city hospital around 11 p.m. the same day the action has happened, because he was previously in the first like a state clinic. He was first transferred there. Like he was taken there. Actually, he went there by like he walked there to the hospital. He was talking to the people in the hospital. Really, yeah. And he even called my mom after 2 hours from the telephone of the doctor, another doctor there. I mean, he was also remembering my mother's number. That's what I wanted to mention. And yes, he was on himself. He was conscious. And it was the accident has happened at 5:20. But my father's friend came to the hospital and they suggested that we need to take him to another hospital because it's a state hospital. And previously, the prominent journalist Rasim Aliyev, who had an internal bleeding, has passed away in that hospital. Yeah, it was not passed away, but he was like, we can call him. He was killed by the command or by the order of the officials. We thought that the same tale could wait for my father. That's why it's better to transfer him to the private hospital. Yeah, we transferred him at 11 p.m. around after 5 hours to the city hospital. Yes, it was at 11 p.m. In the city hospital, as I mentioned before, they didn't do anything, literally. And at that time, my father already, he went into sleeping.
Oh, and that's the most dangerous thing that can happen with a head injury, is to sleep. Exactly. And they weren't paying any attention to that at all, or this is a horrible situation if you're in the hospital.
They didn't do anything in the hospital. They didn't pass to MRI scan, which is necessary to examine what's going on. And yeah, they thought that they will do what is necessary, but they haven't done anything.
Is it curious? Thank you, Ali. Is it curious to you that the Heydar Aliyev Foundation actually now has helped your father go to Istanbul?
Yeah, like yes, I will just came back to this question, but it has to be mentioned that as like after 6 hours when the internal bleeding is happening in a city hospital, like at 7 a.m. in the morning when my mother saw my father in the hospital, his left eye has already affected. It means that the internal bleeding had intensified, but they didn't operate at that time even. They just delayed until 12:30 to the noon, and they just operated him at his last breath. This is like that's why my father today at this condition. And regarding to your question, well,
I'm so sorry that your family was put through that delay. That is so incredibly difficult to see before your eyes, that he is losing consciousness and they're not doing anything about it. My heart breaks for your family.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what has happened. You describe it really well. Like my mother just just consistently asking the employees taking him, he's like dying. It was like my mom has seen him 2 times. In the second time at 9 a.m. when she saw my father, he couldn't breathe even, just because of like the condition. And they see like his left eye has affected. This is like, even the university student who has seen him, who could see him, they could say that if there is a question in the left eye, he must take him to the operation like immediately. But they didn't do it. They just like kept, until his last
Thank you, Ali. So in addition to the delay of the medical treatment, we have also seen a significant delay in the investigation of this so-called accident. No prosecutors, no police have investigated what happened. This is also a second delay. So we have delay in medical treatment, and now we have a delay in the investigation. How is your family concerned about this?
Well, yes, that's true actually. Our lawyer Fuad Agayev, who he last time could meet the investigator by the end of 2019 and by the beginning of 2020, and he, despite of his continuous letters and phone call to the investigator as well as to the public prosecutor, they are still delaying the process. He still have not had an access. He was not allowed to have an access to the documents regarding to the investigation process. We still don't know whether our lawyer has petitioned to check the trajectory of the taxi driver who hit my father, as well as to see the details of his last conversation in phone, if he had with anyone who directed him, who gave my father's direction. But they didn't answer. They didn't even refuse or approve. They officially or unofficially haven't given any answer. And furthermore, we still don't know whether they have asked the hospitals, the doctors, the reason why they delayed the operation, whether they have investigated this case. They don't, they are just blocking us, and it seems really ridiculous just what they are doing. And they didn't even give the some explanation why they are doing so. But recently they just they say they told their lawyer that we don't recognize you as his lawyer because my father has to give him the regarding he can be their representative of our family. Yes.
Credentials, right?
Yes, credentials. Yep, exactly.
So they are delaying. They're saying it's because your father isn't there that they can investigate this accident that nearly killed him?
Yes, that's the crazy argument that they are bringing. Yes, okay. He's in coma.
He's in coma, but nearly killed him, right?
Yes, and yes, he's in coma, and he has to give the testimony or the documents to not my family. My mother has given this document. This is absurd to this argument, and we don't need to focus, and we know what is behind of this argument. They are just delaying the case artificially, and they don't even, as I say, get the explanation from the doctors why they delayed the operation, why they didn't do literally anything. What was the reason? No, they just this is the terrifying reality of the Azerbaijani government. They don't care.
We're starting to lose your connection, but what I am seeing here are two serious violations of the UN Declaration on Human Rights. The first serious violation would be to not grant someone medical service or medical help when they're clearly in medical distress. And the second violation would be no investigation of an accident that caused this medical distress. So we have two serious delays that are both in violation of the UN Declaration of Human Rights. It seems like this is something that should be investigated not only among the Azerbaijani authorities, but the entire globe, the entire world should be investigating. How can Azerbaijan be delaying in two ways, delaying the rights of this man who has done very little except help people who are in distress. I mean, his initial work was with people who were in disasters, right? That was his concern, was to help people in disasters. And now we have justice, we have medical service delayed, and we have justice delayed. And what I've learned in my years as a teacher of human rights law is justice delayed is justice denied.
Exactly.
So,
and as you mentioned, this is my father is one of the most prominent human rights defenders in Azerbaijan, and he was probably the most active human rights defender in Azerbaijan in the last 10 years, who has really committed himself to the human rights. And this is the relationship the government shows to the human rights defender. It shows that this is how is the condition of the law in Azerbaijan. If you like get the or get acquainted with the documents, with the reports which my father has written or published, you could see that the law, the constitution of Azerbaijan, it is just a paper that, like a disrespected paper. The country is being ruled by the unwritten rules, not with the written. So it is like the country is ruled with them with the mafia rules, you know. It's really terrifying. Like
Ali, thank you, Ali. That is a perfect way of putting it. And do you have any idea what your father's case, what effect that might have on other human rights and civil rights society in Azerbaijan? What effect does your father's case have on those people who are trying to bring a civil society to question things in Azerbaijan? What effect would your father's case have on them?
Thank you a lot for the question. Actually, it's a good question. And I mean, as far as I am concerned, I think that, you know, like the current condition of my father and the reaction internally and internationally, internationally the reaction was really low. Like the international organization community haven't reacted that much, which I was expecting. But internally, who knows my father's activity, it was really a great pressure on the government. That was the reason that the Foundation has transferred my father to the hospital in Turkey as an answer to your first question, second question. And for the, actually, I would say that the current condition of my father is like a lesson for the people, which is a bad lesson by the government, that my father, actually, the current condition also affected to us as a family, because my brother, me, and family are taking care of my father for 24 hours since he cannot move. And it's really like, it has been 11 months and so long time. And it's like, you know, it's like a bad lesson for a people who are defending the human rights. The government just shows that, you know, like, you see, like, what we are doing, and we are not, no one is asking us how we do, and we are just doing what we want. We can easily violate, we can even punish the people who are the human rights defenders, who just, you know, who are defending the rights of political prisoners. So by doing that, the government is not solving the political prisoners problem, the human rights problem, like especially in the courts, in penitentiary system, in the police system. Like the reality is really terrified in this system. They don't want to solve these problems. They just wanted to eliminate the critics, to, you know, to just get rid of the critics. This is really the reality. This is what is the government's plan, and this is what they are doing for nearly 3 decades, and they are gonna to do, I believe, like if we are not gonna to say a big stop to them, with them.
Ali, thank you. I am so sorry what your family has been through. We have a very unfortunate anniversary coming up now at the end of October. I hope things are rectified and somehow the delays that have been implemented by the government have, hopefully they will start the investigation to try to figure out why your father is in a coma and how he got there. But this terrible anniversary is coming up, and my heart goes out to you and your family. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us about this. And I want to repeat that justice delayed is justice denied. And the rest of the world needs to take heed on what's happening in Azerbaijan.
I thank you a lot for your attention, for your concern, my father's case. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you.